Hello, good morning. I'm Yeesheen Yang. I'm at Optimizely. I run the customer education team, and I'm here to talk to you about experimentation. As you can see on this slide, I was going to be here today with Shane Fontaine, who's our product designer. He unfortunately couldn't be here, so I'm going to wear both our hats today and speak from both our perspectives. It's hard to hear me? Okay. I'm gonna wear both our hats today, my own and Shane, and him not being here also gives me the opportunity to slant it a little bit my way because we don't always see eye to eye. So first, a little bit about Optimizely. Okay. That's fine. What does Optimizely do? Has anybody here heard of Optimizely? Raise your hand. Cool. Oh, yay. Okay. So we are in the practice of experimentation. We enable customers to experiment in their software on the server side and the front end all in one. This is really exciting to me because I'm a former scientist. I was a biologist in a lab, and I've seen the power of experiments every day at my work there. And so it's super exciting to jump on and have this perspective of how we do this in building products and websites. Just the concept of an experiment really quick, you have a control, a variation, you test them against each other, and you set really measurable goals and then set them live to your users, and see which one wins, basically, which is our most favorite game at Optimizely, which one won, and we will be playing it in a second, so don't you worry. I'm also going to be talking a little bit about customer education because I think, how many of the people in this room are focusing on product? Yeah, most of you. As a customer education manager, and my colleague there in the back, Spencer, raise your hand, Spencer. Or your coffee, if you can raise your coffee. We are on the customer education team, and we're in customer success. So we bring a little bit of a different perspective to how we build things in the product. We do build things in the product using Pendo, of course. I want to talk a little bit about that and just what the space is and why we're a part of this conversation. I'm also, by the way, the program manager for Pendo at Optimizely. So I'm going to start off with some questions. I'm going to ask you to raise your hands. I'm going to ask you to do this a bunch of times because I'm a former teacher, so here's the first time. Raise your hand if you've ever had this dilemma or struggled with this in your work. Maybe you have a lot of things on your plate and you're having to balance, hey, if you're in product or if you're not, do I build this new feature that I hear that people want and make some headway against our backlog of prioritized feature needs? Or do I refine some existing part of our app, solve some problems that we know that we have? Maybe there's some trouble areas that you really want to address. Have you ever had to balance those priorities in your work? Keep your hand raised. Raise your hand if you have gotten a request or been the requester of, oh, hey, I work with customers. We really need these features. Can you please build them now, now. Keep your hands raised. And have you ever been involved in, hey, customers don't understand how to get started with Optimizely, or what is this feature? What is it? We explained it to them. We trained them. Why don't they understand? How do we explain it better? Keep your hands raised. Okay, it's good. You can put your hands down. That's most of the people in the room. That's all I wanted. And really what I want to say is, these are the problems that really occupy our day-to-day, right? As people who work in software, who work in product. And they don't matter. What? No, that's not true. But these aren't actually the problems that customers care about, right? These are the problems that we care about in our day-to-day, that we spend all of our time and bandwidth and energy on. But is this really what a customer needs to know? Is this really what they care about? No, right? They don't care about your product. Sorry. They care about doing their jobs, right? They care about doing their jobs and doing them well. They care about learning your product. Sometimes they care about learning your product because they have to do their jobs, right? But really what they're doing in their day-to-day is what they're being paid to do. They're trying to learn more about the craft of marketing or building products or whatever it is, design, right? They're there for the same reason. They want to learn just the way that we are here at Pandemonium trying to learn about our own craft, right? So how do you help customers find that value in your product, right? That's the question that I have. If customers aren't there to learn your software and love it, they're trying to use it to do their jobs, how do you help them find that value? Right. Okay, well, first, this is me with my Yeesheen hat, by the way, if you can't tell. Start with a simple, hopefully intuitively designed system, right? Start with a foundation. We need features that people need to do their job successfully. We need hopefully an elegant navigation that people can use to figure out where they need to go in your app, and where we at Optimizely have a very flexible system and navigation. So there's many places you could go. There's no linear workflow, right? So this is one of the ways that we have designed our system. Start with useful helper text. What is this feature for? What is an audience? When we're talking about experiments, what are we actually talking about here? If I press this create experiment button, or it changed, but create new, and then there's a drop down, experiment button, what's actually going to happen, right? So starting with that first system, of course, right? But does this get us all the way there? This is obviously going to be me putting on my Yeesheen customer education hat. Arguably, no. The first time you come into the UI, if you don't have training, you don't know what to do, right? And that impedes you doing your job. So let's play a little game. I ripped this straight from Dan Huth's book, by the way. Can somebody volunteer, somebody who knows a popular song and can clap? Do you want to come up here? Somebody raise their hand. A brave soul, or I will start picking on you.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
I don't know what a popular song is.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. Okay.
I can clap really well.
Okay. Perfect. Already raising the bar. Okay, so you're going to clap the chorus of your popular song, and then you guys listen and try to guess. You know this game? You guys guess what it is.
No, I don't know what song.
Oh, I almost know what the song is. What is it? What is it? Does anybody know? No. Okay. So Beethoven's ninth, maybe? Eighth? Fifth. Thank you. Thank God. Okay. Well, in the moment before you sang it, though, it was really hard to guess what that song was, right? I think that many of you, maybe like me, felt like it was on the tip of your tongue, but you didn't quite know, right? This is sort of like customer education. We as people in product and software, we're like, hey, this is so easy. It says create a new experiment, right? It's actually not that easy, right? We are coming from the space of knowing and trying to impart that to your users who are just trying to do their jobs, right? It's actually not that easy. So that's my little plug for customer education and what it is we do. In the race towards first value, when you're onboarding, which we know is so critical to somebody's ongoing success, lifetime value in your product, onboarding is critical. Many trip at the starting line still because they don't know what to do. Customer education enables users to find first value. I'm going to race through this a little bit. This is how we do it outside of the app. I'm going to, it's a plug for our Optiverse, which is our world of learning, which is why it's called the Optiverse. It is our academy. We have learning paths. If you're a beginner, here's how you start. If you're an advanced user, here's how you learn about the practice of experimentation. It's not just product training, right? It's also strategy articles. So how do you write a really effective hypothesis? How do you set goals that are going to get your test to significance, right? What's the right kind of goals and tests for your business? These are all things that we teach in the academy as well as in our knowledge base and our documentation. We also have developer docs and we have certifications because people like to put that on their LinkedIn. So that's the Optiverse. Oh, are we done? For now users are fully enabled to do their jobs and they're like happy and they can go away. No. Sorry. Also, this Optiverse drove down our support costs, right? This is a metric that our COO, who is formerly our CFO, really, really loves, right? What you see here is the rising number of support tickets in our system as our customer base and our product grew, right? And then that sort of vertical line there is in April 2014 when we released the Optiverse, which was a self-serve service, which many people still ask us about. Do people really want to self-serve resources like that? The answer is a lot of the times, yes, right? People want to learn on their own so that they can do their jobs. They don't want to like have somebody come on and have only one opportunity to learn. If they can, they want to solve their own problems. So, whoops. Okay. But was that enough? You know, we showed great value with customer education in helping users like learn to use the app better and do their jobs better, learn the strategy of experimentation better. Is it enough? Arguably no, because actually users don't want to spend time in the Optiverse. I mean, they kind of do, they're willing to do that, but really where they want to spend a lot of their time is in the app itself, right? So that's what we brought with Pendo. This is a guide, it's an onboarding guide. I think that James helped set us set up, which is setting up an event, which is a key part of this, one of many stages of onboarding and implementing Optimizely on your site, right? You set up events so that you can measure the effectiveness of your test. So we know this is critical. It's one of the things we really, really want you to do. So we have like a little, I think it's like a 4 or 5 step guide showing that. And did we test it? Yes, we did. This is the test we actually built. Oh no, we didn't build this enough. Yeah, this is a test that we built we have the guide creation and the page creation. These are 2 steps in onboarding, and we showed that people who saw the guide actually created pages there was a 270% lift in users who saw this guide and actually completed the action that we wanted them to create a page, right? And a 300% in creating an event, which is really, the event is actually deeper in the flow, so that's really exciting to see. It's a smaller subset of users. So we A/B tested this. This is really important in proving value in our organization. It's also really important to know that we're actually making an impact the way that we want, right? But is this really an experiment? Is this running a true test? I mean, in a way, it is, right? This is an experiment in the sense that we tested having something versus having nothing and showed that, yeah, having something is better, right? And that's hugely valuable and it was really important for us as an organization and for my team especially. But it's not really an experiment in the sense that you're asking a super deep question. Right? What's the hypothesis? The hypothesis is, oh, if we show people how to do this, they're going to do it. Yeah, that was validated. Awesome. Okay, so I'm arguing that, and I'm going to show you a story of something where we tested something a little bit deeper that's going to be small. It's going to seem small, but to me is a super exciting story. Customer education enables customers to reap ongoing value. We also showed, by the way, after that initial onboarding guide, we built out a whole lot more onboarding. And so we've shown that accounts that engage with our in-product education guides, they engage with like onboarding and flows, have created 17% more experiments, or created Is that right? Yeah, 17% more experiments over time, and they also find statistical significance more often, which means they get more value out of our product, right? Cool. So that was a micro experiment. It kind of proved the ROI of onboarding. Is that enough? No. So I'm going to tell the story about how one team, and a team that's not even really a team, it's a cross-functional team, which if your organization is anything like mine, can often be very challenging to work cross-functionally, used experimentation to solve a persistent problem for our customers, one that was preventing them from achieving value that they were looking for. So there's a story in 3 acts. This is Act 1. In Act 1, our support team noticed a problem. One of the most exciting parts of Optimizely is our visual editor. It's a place where you put in your app and you instantly can start messing around with it and like putting like funny GIFs on your website and stuff. And it doesn't go live to customers, but it really shows the value of Optimizely, and it's an exciting moment where you can do things with your site instantly that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise without involving your engineers or other parts of your organization. But it's sometimes challenging to load your site into the visual editor, right? Maybe you have to load a Chrome extension, maybe you didn't install the snippet right, maybe there's some problem with your implementation, and customer support was getting calls about this all the time. And we were seeing this in the customer education team too, because we manage documentation, right? Consistently the number 2 article, most read article for 2 years, right? How do I load my site in the editor? So, an amazing member of our support team was like, hey, we have Pendo. Why don't we help them solve this problem in the app so they don't have to call in, so they don't have to go to our knowledge base and read what is frankly a very, very long article with many, many options in it and troubleshoot their own problem. So we did. And this was highly, highly effective. Customers saw this. It was a 5-step guide. It was from the perspective of troubleshooting, and so from a support perspective. So it offered you like, hey, could it be that you didn't install the snippet? Go read this article. Could it be that you need this Chrome extension? Go read this article. Could it be that you might want to try our other options? Go read this article, right? So it's not the most seamless flow. If you were a designer, you probably wouldn't design it this way, right? But his goal was to reduce support tickets because he's on the support team, and that worked, right? Was that a test? Still not quite, though. So now our designer enters the picture. This is Shane, who isn't here, but who would normally be talking about this. Shane actually didn't start out asking a question. He started out looking for a place to promote a feature we have or functionality that we had. He was looking for, we have a desktop app, which is pretty cool. It's very stable. It's very seamless, but nobody uses it, in part because the only place you can download it is on our knowledge base in a specific article called Here's Our Desktop App. But he was looking for a way to promote it and get people into that seamless experience so that they could get value out of our product faster. And in doing that, he came across this flow that Brian Abad on our support team built. And he was like, hey, there's actually a bigger question here, right? It's not, hey, how do we promote our desktop app? The question is actually, how do we solve this persistent problem that customers might encounter day after day of using Optimizely permanently? Right? What's the best way to help them solve this problem? So his metrics were a little bit different, right? Now he's running a true test. His metrics are primary metric, number of visitors coming back to see this guide that we're going to deploy in Pendo, right? Because if you have this problem, you'll see the guide and it's automatically displayed. If you don't have this problem again, you won't see the guide again, right? So a reduction in returning visitors. The other one was that we had this very, very long-stepped guide built by the support team, which had all of these self-serve options. How do we reduce the amount of time that a user has to spend looking at this guide, reading through these different options, when they could just be doing their job, right? So that was his question, and he wrote a hypothesis for it. It's a problem, solution, result. We have a great knowledge base article if anybody wants to read it about problem, solution, results framework, although you guys are probably actually familiar. Okay, here comes the fun part. Which one won? So he built a number of true variations, right? Because he really wanted to explore what is an effective way to do this, and he's a designer. And so I'm going to go through these options, and then I'm going to ask you to vote. So listen carefully. A, educate with documentation. This is our original flow. From the support perspective, it's like, here are all of the things that you might need to know in order to solve this problem. B, you educate with the same information, but radically condensed, right? We give you a sentence, and then we use icons to help guide the user. So B is, hey, if you see the shield icon in your search bar, here's what you should do. Hey, have you tried to install a Chrome extension before? Here it is. So it's much more concise. It's arguably also more from, well, anyway, I won't bias the results. Okay, C, We have a pop-out editor that solves this problem for you one time. It opens Optimizely in a new tab, and then you can start editing your editing the experience, but it doesn't solve it for you necessarily permanently. And then D, we have our desktop app, and so it presents only the solution and asks you to download. The prompt is, though, that you'll never encounter this problem again, but you've got to download this app. Everyone got the options? Yes. Okay. Votes for A. Oh. Votes for B. Some, I would say that's like a little over 50%. Votes for C, please. Some, okay. Brave souls voting for C. And D. Ooh, interesting. Can somebody volunteer really quick why you chose D? Anybody want to volunteer? Yeah. Okay, so it seems like an easy, frictionless solution. Interesting. You never have to think about it again. Yeah. So before I show you the answer, I want you to think about this moment right now. Do you know? I mean, maybe some of you are pretty sure, maybe some of you are totally sure, but do you know? No. You need data to solve this problem, right? That's how you would really know. Is your actual users, what do they actually choose to do, right? Actually, the winner is B. Yay! So this change in the guide was actually just a reskinning of the original guide in a way, but it is more customer-centric, right? It saw a 4% drop in returning visitors, meaning it sounds like not that many, but it's actually thousands of users. Those people never encountered this problem again. They haven't returned, right? And then there's a 55% reduction in time on guide, almost a full minute. Right? So this is iteratively working towards a better solution. But this is what I would call the data-driven view, right? We use the data to solve this problem. Done, check, let's move on. No, actually, when we dig into results, right, this is to me the power of experiments and using a data-informed view. Shane is a designer, he's creative, he's also data informed, and he took a look at the results and he's like, hey, what other conclusions can we draw here? What can we really learn from? What is a win? You don't always get a win, sometimes you have an inconclusive result, but from anything that you get, you can learn more about your users and what they do, right? So his hypothesis enabled him to make a leap, a small leap, but still, one that's very exciting to me, which is, hey, we also learned that the pop-up editor, who voted for that one? Nice. Yeah, this was actually the least popular option, right? But actually customers liked it. It was a great runner-up because it solved the problem instantly. All you have to do is click this button. It's in a new tab, doesn't add any time to your workflow, and they really liked it. So we included it in the refreshed guide, which hopefully is here. Yep. Yeah. As the top option. Right, so this to me is really exciting. For one, because the experiment and asking a true question with a well-built hypothesis and metrics enabled him to make a human leap in designing based on the experimental data that he got. Right, this is, I don't know, it's incredibly exciting to me. Another thing that was really exciting to me is that this is a cross-functional effort. This is an effort that started in support, which usually has a lot of trouble getting the ear of product, right? And it moved up in the organization or across the organization into design until it's now a solution that we will eventually build into the app itself, right? And this is enabled by we put it into program management, which is a part of our product. We're trying to dog food more, or it's sometimes called drinking your own champagne. Both phrases are really not my favorite. But this is exciting to me because this type of cross-team collaboration on an idea that you can prioritize as a team is very challenging to get, right? So, cool. So experimentation enables us to solve customer problems without guesswork, and work towards the global maximum, right? The first solution was great. It was super useful. And as you can see, we actually only iterated on a little bit to arrive at the second solution, like the second version and then the third version. But the first one was solving towards a local maximum. It was using metrics that were for that team for support, and they weren't super customer-focused metrics in a way, right? Even though they were derived out of the customer perspective. So if Shane were here, he might say, hey, but we didn't really need you guys to solve that problem, right? Like, I could have designed the solution. And my argument to him would be like, but you didn't, right? This is coming out of support because they see this problem every single day, right? Customer education sees this problem every single day. And so it takes the whole team to come up with a solution that, yeah, it's just about loading your website in the editor, but that's a super critical part of the product, right? That's a super critical part of your experience and doing your job. So that's it. Finding the right problems to solve as one team. And so this is my last slide, which is this is the space for experimentation. That's kind of how I see the app, right? I also see that as customer education, onboarding flows, the things that we deliver in Pendo or onboarding guides, those are opportunities for experimentation as well, right? We have a great thing that we've built, we've shown the ROI, and our next goal is to like really experiment about how do we get closer to what users really, really need. That's it. Questions? Yes.
So I know you all obviously have testing and stuff and experiments to do A/B testing. Do you use Pendo to like segment based on percentage and just run guides at the same time and just segment in that way? Or I mean, you all obviously do that yourself.
Great question. You're making me realize I dropped a critical part of my presentation. So thank you for that question. The first thing that we ran where we A/B tested the Yes, thank you. The question was, how did you A/B test it? Did you segment two different guides to two different audiences in Pendo, because you're using Pendo, which we are, and deliver it that way and A/B test it, or how did you do that? And so that is actually exactly how we did the first event and page guide that I showed you, the part of the onboarding guide. We showed half of it. Pendo allows you to randomly bucket, so we showed the guide to 50% of users, and we didn't show it to the other 50%. And then I think our Pendo team did some magical calculations and showed us the results. But we're Optimizely, right? So we want like the statistical rigor of our stats engine when we're testing. And so the second test, the experiment that Shane built, was built in Optimizely, and we used Optimizely to bucket, look at results, allow us to segment. And then the actual guides were in Pendo, so we used Optimizely to trigger Pendo guides. So it's a bit of a hairy solution, but it worked in that case. Great question. Other questions?
So you talked a little bit about your onboarding process. How much experimentation did you do around how much is too much onboarding guides and pop-ups? And how did you walk through that process? Is there a lot going on, or do you time it to have them exposed to different pieces, or as they have spent time in the product? Or curious your approach on onboarding.
Yeah. The question is about did you experiment on your onboarding process? How much is too much onboarding? How do you know if you're giving too much information, there are too many pieces of it? Is that about right? The answer is a little bit complicated. So we experimented in the sense of the A/B test that I showed you, or the sort of pseudo A/B test. And we also look at a lot of our analytics data. So like our onboarding right now is sort of daisy chain set of guides. Like you go to this part of your app, you do this part of your app, because it's quite complicated. Well, it's not that complicated, but there's many pieces of it. So we also look at our Pendo analytics to see how many people end up doing the final result, which is creating an experiment. That said, there's a lot of opportunity for actual true experimentation in our onboarding flow. That's sort of one of the things I'm hoping to accomplish this year is what do we really, really need? Not just based on what our training team does or our customer success team says, but what do we, from an app perspective, really, really need to be in the product itself, right? Because those are a little bit different. Interesting. Okay, so, the question is, have we noticed any changes in our visits to Optiverse or how people consume our education resources since the onboarding in the app? Not noticeably, but it's one of the things that I would maybe expect to notice. One thing, though, is that what we found is you can do a lot of pinpoint nudges, guides in the app itself, but it's hard to provide more elaborated information because the text can get quite long and it's very boring. to read when you're in the app setting. It's not the expectation there. And so what we actually end up doing is we'll tell you what the critical behavior is, but if you need to learn more, you will go to our documentation or we will recommend one of our training courses, and people still do continue to use those. Yeah. So I don't really see it as a replacement, but more as a gateway to getting people to the resources that they need in time and when they need them.
I was almost curious to see if it increased, right? Because you're getting people a nugget.
Yeah. I was actually really hoping it would, but we haven't really seen that so far. Sorry, the comment was, did it increase? And I was kind of hoping to drive more traffic from the app that way, but because we put all of our resources at the end of guides, I think that hasn't been a super high driver of traffic for us. Other questions? Yep.
How often is the customer team in Pendo? How often is the product design team in Pendo? Is it pretty equal, or is one?
Yeah, the question is, how often is the customer success team in Pendo versus the product team? At Optimizely, it's not totally equal because customer education runs the Pendo program. I run the Pendo program. And so largely it's my team that's in Pendo building guides. We're also writers, and so that kind of lends itself to that use. Some of the PMs use Pendo for things like getting customers into a beta trial, reaching out to customers directly in a very targeted segment, people who we think are likely to be interested. And they've seen great success with that. They've been really excited about it, actually. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question, I guess it's about both, a little bit about Pendo, but also about Optimizely. Are you able to create scientists? So I'm asking, like, what, you said, oh, hey, I was actually a working scientist. And I wonder if you're able to actually see people's identities change as they become better and better using Optimizely. Do you actually have some metric of like, hey, we're creating actually a generation of people who are better at thinking about these issues?
I love that idea. So to answer your question, to repeat the question, are we able to create scientists using, I guess, training people in the practice of experimentation, essentially, right? I think it's complicated. So I think if I were to answer this question, my answer would be sort of. What we see is we measure organizational maturity in experimentation, right? How well are you able to not have like one optimization hero or one experimentation hero in your marketing org or something like that, but how are you able to transform your whole organization so that they're all running experiments and think with an experiment mindset? So instead of let me go and build this thing, ask a question, have a hypothesis, run it through the different parts of your organization. That's part of program management too, is like allowing you to have ideas from all different parts of your organization and prioritizing them based on effort, impact, and then running a test to really, really see, right? So in that sense, there's certainly a practice of experimentation. As I'm not sure I would say that we were creating scientists, but we're definitely creating mature experimentation programs that we have definitely seen, especially in large enterprise orgs.
How much of your information presented in your support documentation and guides, how much of that crosses over in each area? As far as same information presented, how do you choose what to include?
Yeah, the question is, how much overlap is there between the resources that you have in documentation or training and the resources that you present in Pendo? Right now, it's quite a lot. It's more a process of elimination. I think we started out with too much, and we're starting to pare down to see, can we do less and less and less, right? This is, I think, to be transparent, an artifact of us being a content team, and so we're thinking, hey, content, what content do you need, right? When really what we need here is the design and research perspective to say like, hey, what does the user really need, right? So to like too much overlap, I would say.
What LMS are you using, and what kind of, I guess, relationship does that have to Pendo? Is it integrated? Do you have it embedded, or do you just link them to that?
The question is, what LMS do we use? We actually house built our LMS. We overhauled it just a couple months ago. Formerly, we used a platform I'm not going to mention because we didn't like it. But is it integrated through Pendo? So what we have is we also have a guide center, and it has all of the Optiverse links in it, and we sort of ping you about it early in your onboarding, like, hey, when you're getting started, you probably want to look at these, and it's in there. And then we also link out at the end of many of our courses, guides. Hey, if you completed this learning to interpret your results page, you might want to learn more in a course that you can take.
Do you have any embedded within?
No. It's not, the platforms are not integrated in any way. Yeah.
When someone first starts out, are they given a package where they have already courses that they should be taking on your Optiverse? And how do you account for that in their in-app experience then?
Yeah. The question is, that's a good question. When somebody first starts, do they get a package of courses they should be taking in Optiverse? And I think your question is, how does this affect our results about creating experiments versus not? They do, in the sense that there is I think a light drip campaign, and also your CSM will recommend certain courses based on your persona. How it affects our results, I think that this is maybe the value of A/B testing too, is that when we're testing people who may have gotten, like holding flat, that maybe you got some resources emailed to you and you might have gone through some training. We're evaluating results based on whether you saw the app notifications or not, right? So it kind of holds that steady. That's a really good question. Yep.
How do you do segmentation for how you find different areas or who's going to test on? Because what if they're sitting right next to each other and see two different apps?
The question is about what if people see different experiences based on experiments, right? They see two different variations. Is that about right? I think that's not let me think for a second. Yeah, I guess I would say that that's not really an issue that we've encountered. We do have some. We are running some experiments in our app about workflow and other things to learn precisely like these questions, like what's more effective during onboarding. But we haven't gotten any feedback that it's confusing to customers. Is that kind of getting at your question? Sort of. I don't know. I don't think that's something we've encountered yet. Yeah, I have heard that as a concern. Is like what do you do when people get different versions of your app? Basically, I would say that zooming out a little bit and maybe speaking a little extemporaneously and beyond my expertise maybe, but I think that actually we're experiencing this every day, right? We go to Netflix and we see a different version of Netflix from somebody else, not just what's recommended, but the actual interface itself, right, is a little bit different from you versus your mom versus your sister. These are the people who share my Netflix account. And the same thing with Amazon, right? And we kind of have just come to accept that experiences are personalized and targeted to us in different ways, and we kind of live in that world today already. So that's kind of my broader perspective on that. Yeah.
How and where do you manage the content of the guide? Writing the actual content?
Like, where does it live? Yeah. The question is, where do we keep the content of the guides? We keep them in Pendo. So we use it kind of as a CMS, I guess, a little bit, at least for in the app. Yeah.
So if ever you wanted to bring it somewhere else,
Yeah.
you'd have to export it.
Yes, I guess we would. Yeah.
To piggyback on that question, do you ever have to deal with mobile clients or additional languages?
The question is, do we ever have to deal with global clients or additional languages? We actually only have one additional language right now, and because it has a strong overlap with English speakers, we don't localize in that way. Yeah, that's a good question, though, and it's something definitely we have to look to in the future as we need to increasingly address this question.
Do you have some sort of guidance as to how much is too much to put into one experiment? Like you change it too radically where you can't really measure any single outcome?
The question is, do you have guidance on how much is too much to put into a single experiment, right? So if you have too many sort of variables in a single experiment that you're changing, is it hard to determine anything from the results? I would say that there's many different approaches to that. There's different strategies that people take. My take on it is you kind of learn that when you're trying to set a primary goal versus secondary goals. You'll have a sense of it, right? You're trying to achieve something. That's what a primary goal is about. It's like, is this the metric of success or not, right? If you have very, very many competing interests in your experiment, you'll see that quickly when you're trying to set the primary goal, that it becomes very hard, right? Versus if you have a well-scoped test, it's less difficult to decide how you're going to measure success. That said, some companies do like very elaborate broken down tests, and then I think they will set a lot of goals, and then using multivariate testing. So that's another way that people sort that out. And there's also sort of another thing that we tell people with like lower traffic to their sites, because this is a concern. You have to test a large change to make a significant difference if you don't have a lot of traffic, because it needs to be really noticed by your users, especially when your sample size is smaller. And so the thing that we say is like you learn something and that gets you somewhere, and then maybe as you iterate you'll learn more things, and so it's less of a yes or no binary and more of an ongoing learning process, which is really what we all want, right? We want an iterative process and experience.
Internally, do you have buy-in and participation from engineering as they're developing new features? Because persistence of Pendo education actions and in-app stuff can get in the way of new features, Z-index problems, things like that. Yes. Are you guys all on the same page, or is that an ongoing struggle?
I'm looking at James because we talk about this sometimes. The question is, at Optimizely, do we have engineering and product buy-in about what we're doing in Pendo and arranging it? Because we have, questions about like, you said Z-index, but I'll say like just, QA and collision, right? Potential and just sometimes different interests. I would say it's mixed. It's something we're working on right now. One of the really exciting things is that we're working with the head of product, and so we're hoping to get engineering resources to support QA questions, and also, collaborate. That's one of the reasons this story is so exciting to me, is being able to collaborate with our design team in this way. That said, there are some legitimate questions like, when do we make the product better, right? Versus when do we deploy an educational guide to solve an issue that we know we have? Right? And those are things that we're constantly debating. Like, why not just make this workflow work instead of deploying an educational guide that educates people around it? Sometimes we can do it, sometimes we can't. It depends on bandwidth and priorities in the organization. But so it's mixed, I guess.
Pendo turned on in your app while they're doing QA, so that they can see how Pendo actions might interrupt or vice versa.
Yeah.
Features that you do.
Is Pendo turned on in the app when they do QA? It is. And then there are some automated tests that I think capture some Pendo actions, although it's not totally comprehensive, and that's somewhere we want to get so that we know exactly what's breaking or what's happening, or if there's any issues or conflicts with things that other modals that are being built or other things like that. Because right now we show a lot of automatically displayed guides.
Kind of follow up on that. How do you communicate internally to let your support team know, to let your product team know, and things like that the customer experience might be different? And how do you prepare them to know that information?
So the question is, how do you prepare your support and success team to know that some part of the app might be different, right? Because they have to support that part of the app. I'm actually really curious how other organizations do this. Right now, we do this as a massive company-wide communication. So, hey, they may see this or this. Hey, there may be this change. Hey, we're launching this thing. And so that's been pretty much totally adequate. We haven't seen any issues with that. That said, as organizations scale, I'm really curious, like, how do other companies address that? So if you have any suggestions or thoughts about that, find me after. Yeah.
I was going to offer this one. Instead of a company-wide blast, we use a Slack channel that relevant teams can opt into to see when a new Pendo is deployed.
Cool. I love that. Okay. The response was instead of a company-wide blast, using an opt-in Slack channel. So teams that need this information can find it, or if you're just interested, I guess. Yeah, cool. I love that. Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah.
Kind of more around, so you being in the customer education side of things, do you roll up with product, or how do you balance between in-app customer success and cost? I don't know if you're a profit center or cost center from your training site.
So the question is, as a customer education team, who do we roll up to? We roll up to customer success. We sit with the product team because we need to be tightly coordinated with the product team. So it's kind of a weird little world. But yeah, we sit with we roll in the organization with customer success. So in many ways, one of our challenges is how to operate not like a customer success content team, but rather like a product and design oriented team. As far as our training center, it is it self-funds itself through our on-prem trainers, which we charge quite a lot for. Very reasonable price, actually, but it generates the revenue. Are we out of time?
I think we're wrapping up.
Yeah. Any last questions? No. Cool. Thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure chatting with you.